This is the Fitness Wisdom Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Fitness Wisdom Podcast. Today we have a returning guest, Dr. Perry Nickelston, also known as the Lymph Doc. You can find him on Instagram and basically everywhere online. Just search Stop Chasing Pain or Dr. Perry Nickelston and you'll be able to find him there. And today we're going to be discussing about the impact of environmental toxins and pollutants and endocrine disruptors, non-native electromagnetic fields on the lymphatic system and how that actually makes us fat, swollen, and even inflamed. So welcome to the show, Dr. Perry. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you back.
Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you inviting me back. I had such a wonderful time on our prior episode, and I can't believe it's been that long since the previous one. So I'm excited for today.
Well, we're always saving the best, right? We're saving it up, and then we have a banger episode every now and then. So let's make it happen. So for people who didn't listen to our first episode, we discussed on that episode, we went very deep on the lymphatic system, what it is, what it does, all the different functions in the body. But there will be first-time listeners to the show and probably people who are long-time listeners but didn't listen to our first episode. So do you want to maybe give a basic overview of what the lymphatic system is and its general functions in the human body when it's working healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, lymph is my jam. I'm the Lymph Doc. Anytime I get a chance to talk about lymphatics in any way, I'm really happy to do that. I'm also really happy to see that over the years, more people are seeing lymphatic work being exposed, on social media, or even anywhere in some current research, which is really, really nice because I feel like they're finally realizing stuff that I've known for a long period of time. And that's a wonderful thing because so many more people can understand the system and then start to help themselves heal. Because I've always said that system to me is the most overlooked and underappreciated in relationship to people that suffer from chronic inflammation, chronic pain, autoimmune diseases, and all those things are just runaway inflammation, basically. Okay, so inflammation is the underlying cause of everything. I'm saying chronic inflammation.
Yes.
Because inflammation in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's part of your body's protective mechanism and survival strategy. And inflammation helps clean up damaged tissues and damaged areas. So even if you just think about that for a moment, what I just said, I want you to hang on to that. Inflammation is something that your body uses to try to also repair things, but also kill things, but clean up things as well. So, the body never does anything without a reason. It's not stupid. You have to figure out why would the body use a particular strategy, otherwise known as a symptom, to try to heal you and to help you. That being said, with the lymphatic system, what is it? Well, it's just one of many systems in your body, and it's important to note that they all have to work together. But you never want to neglect this one because I find this one is the actual underlying reason why even your nervous system won't work that well. Because everybody's going after the nervous system, which is great, but it's not the only system that you have. So your lymphatic system is the primary component of your immune system. So its job is a couple of things. It helps eliminate and control inflammation in and of itself. So if you have chronic inflammation, I automatically know you have some type of lymphatic dysfunction. It's not working the way that it should or as optimum. Could be in one location, could be multiple locations. Usually it's going to be something deep and central along the spine, in the gut, and in the brain. Those will definitely take a hit. So its job is to control inflammation. It also eliminates waste from the body. Right. So anytime you have trapped waste inside of the body that can't get out, that will result in more inflammation. Okay. So it's basically kind of like a toilet system to flush things out of your body that get into your body, but also the waste that your body makes on a daily basis just by creating its own energy. making new cells. It transports hormones. It transports long-chain fatty acids. It actually transports fat-soluble vitamins. And it's a huge player in keeping the fluid-filled environment that all of your cells live in so they can function. And if the fluid that your cells live in cannot be maintained at what they call homeostasis or balance, and you're surrounded by waste products in the cells, you will stay sick. You will not get better because cells, well, first of all, they'll die. And it's really difficult to make another new cell when cells that are around it are living in a toxic environment. So fluid cleaning is a big one. Like that's top of the food chain for me. And last but not least, it is a significant player, a significant part of your vascular system, your blood flow system, how your arteries work and how your veins work. So arteries, veins, and lymphatics, to me, I consider one system working together. You can't separate those out. And when you have an issue with one, you will have an issue with them all. And those will be involved in some way in whatever your chronic pain, inflammation label diagnosis is. So lymphatics are a pretty big deal. That's the takeaway.
Guys, if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and the like button. Now back to the show.
Yeah, it's very impressive. Like when you understand how all these different systems are interconnected, hence the lines on your shirt, right? Isn't that what they symbolize? The red line and the yellow line, like the cardiovascular system and the lymphatic system, the nervous system, sort of all running together. And so when you're influencing one, you talk about this all the time on your page, right? Like when you influence one, you're also influencing the other. So if you take care of your nervous system, it can have an impact on your lymphatic system. If you take care of your lymphatic system, it can impact your nervous system and therefore your cardiovascular system. Yeah, so it's super powerful, you know, especially when you teach your big six lymph mojo. It also stimulates the vagus nerve, you know, because right behind the ear where you rub as well there. So it's a super powerful thing to do. And I always feel amazing doing it. We were chatting on Instagram and you were telling me how, you know, the awareness is increasing on the lymphatic system, and it's good that people are becoming more aware. But many people are doing it wrongly and they are actually getting negative effects from it. And then they're thinking that, you know, maybe this isn't like good for me. So maybe you can maybe tell us like, how are people actually doing it wrongly? And is there a correct way to stimulate the lymphatic system?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, because it's becoming more popular, you see it all over the place and many people demonstrating ways to move your lymphatics. Many of them are not optimal. Hey, but first I want to preface it by saying that everything that you do moves your lymphatics. Like when you go for a massage, you're moving lymphatics. When you're exercising, you're moving lymphatics. Okay? So every type of manual work or stimulation to the tissues moves lymphatics. So then this is when people say, well, why do I need your work, or why is it this so special if all that stuff moves it? That's a great question, because one, people might not even be aware that they're moving the lymphatics. They're just doing it by accident, right? But the lymphatics flow is based on a pressure system, because pressures actually move fluids inside the body. And if you do the lymphatic work in the wrong order, not optimal order, you're going against the physics of fluid flow in the body. So instead of helping the body eliminate the waste, you actually just it's like taking a snow globe and just shaking it up. Everything floats all around and you actually get worse and stay inflamed because you're not helping things exit. If anything, you're helping stuff go backwards the wrong way. And I see this all the time. And that's why the Big Six was created, because the release points are based on how the physics of fluids work in the body, known as hydraulics, okay, or the hydraulics of fluid flow. That being said, the biggest thing that I see when people do lymphatic work is they're usually starting from the legs and the feet and trying to drive stuff up towards the heart, towards the collarbone, and when it should be done in the exact reverse order. So you have to clear the collarbone area first because that's the main drainage point for the lymphatics. So this is the main drain with the lowest pressure in the body. And the highest pressure will be in the hands and the feet and in the head. So when you understand how physics work with fluid flow, high pressure is trying to make its way towards low pressure. So that means that everything in your hand, everything in your foot, everything in your head is trying to flow towards the collarbone in relationship to your lymphatics. So you have to start at the collarbone and work your way out, and then you can work your way back in. Because if you do it the opposite way, what happens is that you send fluids up towards areas that still have pressure blocks in them, and they don't allow the fluid to move through as well or as easily, and they have more of a tendency to what they call backflow. So you push fluid towards an area where it's got no way out. It's got two choices. It either goes back where it came from or it expands outward this way. So it goes down or it goes out. Yeah, because fluid has to flow somewhere. If it can't get out the way that it's designed to, it'll find somewhere else to go. And that's the puffiness, that's the swelling, and that's the inflammation. So that's the single reason why when people come in and they say, Doc, I've gone for all these massages and I've done some lymph stuff in the past, but I felt worse or it didn't really work. And that's because people just started to send body fluids all over the place, as opposed to understanding that you have to do things in a specific order, in order for the fluids to actually go where you're trying to get them to go, if that makes sense.
Yes. Looking to connect with a community of like-minded individuals? I've got your back. Head over to the description below and join my Fitness Wisdom Podcast Telegram group, where I'll be sharing daily actionable knowledge and wisdom, as well as anything timely. This is a place where we can get to connect deeper and have meaningful, nuanced conversations. So if you want to connect with me, find a like-minded tribe, and take your knowledge and wisdom to the next level, join the Fitness Wisdom Podcast Telegram group. I look forward to seeing you in there.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned blockage there, and I think that's going to be people's question as well, that how on earth do we get a blockage in the first place? Is that just by design? Is the body just more, it doesn't want to accept the fluids well? What's the reasoning why we may encounter some blockage in the lymphatic points? And isn't it also fascinating how, if you think about it, you know it quite well, that the lymphatic clusters, they are located in areas of the body where we have a ton of movement, right? So the neck, the armpits, the abdomen, the inner groin, back of the knees. So I find that super fascinating. But why do you think that we encounter these blockages?
That's a really good question. Yeah. So my simple answer, where I'm joking, but I'm not really joking, is this thing called life does it. If you're alive on this earth, you're going to be prone towards fluid stagnation and blocks, particularly in the modern world that we live in. All right. A couple of big reasons are, one, humans don't move nearly as much as they used to. We sit a lot, and that clamps down on these primary location places where you have those lymph node clusters, and the lymph nodes are kind of the mini toilet processing stations that are there to clean out the waste and tell your immune system what something is. And the reason I created the big six is because those are the 6 places where the clusters live. And it's the joints of the body that are supposed to move the most. That's the operative word. But if you sit a lot, every single one of those things becomes tight, tense, and can become compromised. So a lack of movement is a big one. Number two is people don't have great breathing patterns anymore. They have what they call dysfunctional breathing. I don't really like the word dysfunctional. I just call it like disrupted breathing. They're stuck in a state of increased stress, hypervigilance, hyperarousal. So they're usually taking way too many breaths per minute, which one will change the blood chemistry a lot between oxygen and carbon dioxide and change the pH of your tissues that your cells live in, that the lymph now has to control. And that breathing right there causes an issue with the pressure pump, because whenever you breathe, that changes pressure in the body. So optimal breathing means you have a better functioning pressure pump for your lymphatics. And so you don't move a lot and you have the disrupted breathing. You just took out two of the top things that cause that. And number three is the increase in stress, the sympathetic fight or flight. It's called hypervigilance, hyperarousal. I continue that by saying, hang on for dear life so you don't let go and you die. So you're stuck in this go, go, go mode. When you do that, you automatically disrupt your breathing. And two, you increase tension throughout the body. So the body increases tension. And when you increase body tension, you decrease fluid flow. I'm going to say that again because it's really important. If you increase body tension, you decrease fluid flow. And then people say, which fluid? And my answer is yes, you name it. I don't care which one you pick. It's just not going to flow because they all run together, hence the arrows that we're talking about. And so you stay in a state of increased tension, decreased flow, primarily lymphatic flow and blood flow. And when you don't get blood flow to something, it dies, man, and it hurts is what happens. And then you become stagnant like this. Now, add on top of that, living in a severely toxic world with toxic food and pesticides and plastics and non-native EMFs and endocrine disruptors, microplastics that everybody's hearing about now. Your system is taking a hit and a half from everywhere. So the important thing to note here is that you got all this stuff happening in the outside environment, which will impact the health of the internal environment. And the health of the internal environment, which the lymphatic system controls, determines how well it can heal and recover from the external environment. So it's inside environment and outside environment. The biggest thing I want people to realize is, yes, I want you to watch your plastics. Yes, I want you to watch your non-native EMFs and your endocrine disruptors. But that's not enough. You have to work the internal environment to get that to work as well as you can so it can get that stuff out once it gets in. That's the key. So you can't just do one and not the other. Like you can't just work lymphatics and then go out and do all the bad stuff because you're going to crush your lymphatic. And you can't do all the outside stuff and not do the inside stuff because that's not going to really help you because you're stuck on the inside. So when people say, well, what came first? I said, the chicken or the egg? And my answer is, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You always do both. And the number one system, I'm going to stress this like crazy, the number one system that cleans you out from the inside is your lymphatic system, right? If that has an issue, you will be more prone to chronic inflammation, chronic pain, autoimmune disease, all these things that are taking human beings out all the time right now. And that's why my life's work has been devoted to teaching you how to work that system, flush out the system, and clean the system, because there's ways that you can really do it way more efficiently than you're doing now if you're doing other stuff to help yourself or even doing lymphatic work with a couple of tweaks, because you're obeying the laws of physics and fluid flow, and then your body says, oh my goodness, this is great, because now I've got the underlying systems that have the capability to do what I'm trying to do, which is to help you heal, recover, and regenerate.
Imagine spiking your blood sugar without eating cake, elevating cortisol, your stress hormone, without being stressed, and suppressing your body's most powerful sleep, antioxidant, and regeneration hormone, which is your melatonin. This is why I make sure to wear my yellow daytime blue light blocking glasses every time where I spend time indoors under artificial lights and in front of screens, to protect my eyes from oxidative stress and my entire body. And if I'm going to be exposed to artificial blue light, especially after sunset, I'm going to wear my red lens blue light blocking glasses to support my melatonin production and release. So if you want to protect your energy levels, sleep, and biology from artificial blue light, head over to the description and you will find all of the links with a massive discount on my favorite blue light blocking glasses.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's so important for people to understand that you have to take care of everything, as you said, the outside and also the inside of the body. I think it's amazing that people are actually understanding that you can do something about it, and how you have so much power and autonomy over yourself, meaning that your body knows how to heal itself if you put it in the right environment to do so. And one quote which I love that you talk about all the time is, you can't get well in the same environment that you got ill within. And that is an absolute fact, because this can be not only from an environmental point, let's say mold or EMF or whatever, but it can be also a traumatic experience. So for example, if you're living somewhere in a specific apartment building, let's say that you had a traumatic experience and you continue to live there. I'm not telling people to move houses, but I'm just saying that if you don't process those emotions, it's going to be really hard to live in that same place, because it's going to, affect the nervous system. And as you just said, if the nervous system is in that fight and flight state, then the lymph and the cardiovascular system, the blood flow is not going to go well. So therefore we have decreased lymphatics, decreased blood flow, oxygen, nutrients to the cells, and waste removal and, toxic waste elimination. And so therefore you have the manifestation of all these physical symptoms, even if the issue arose from a psychological issue, And so this is how deep it goes, that, what Dr. Perry is saying, that how much the outside environment is influencing your internal state as a human being, and how your internal environment as well is going to determine how well you feel, like on the outside, or what kind of symptoms are going to manifest in that way, right? So let's take people through step by step. Sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I said that's very well said. That's one of my favorite quotes. I wish I could remember actually who originally said it.
Yeah.
But this day and age on the internet, you never know really who said something. But the takeaway is the quote itself, right?
Yes.
So I'm glad you showed the two of those, because you have your external environment, where you're at. So one of the best ways you can change your health is to change your environment. That's what they tell you. Remove yourself from where you are, put yourself into another location if you can. And then you also have the psychological environment. So you can begin to change your thinking process, right? And then you have the internal environment. You can change the internal environment. Many times it's easier for people to change the internal environment than the external environment. And that's where you can do the lymphatics. And here's the part that connects it is, if you have a stagnated lymphatic system and poor vascular flow, you have an increase in inflammation, and it's much more difficult for you to think those better thoughts to help you change your life, because you're stuck in so much inflammation that your brain is not able to work as well, and you just can't think. And then you become a lot more emotionally reactive to different things, because you have the underlying inflammation on the inside that's actually driving your thinking process. So many people are trying to, I just got to change how I think, and I'm going to say positive things, and I'm going to read positive books and hang out with people. And that's great, but that's much more challenging to do when you have the cells inside living in inflammation and stagnated fluids. You
Yes.
clear this out, that's the person that says, holy cow, man, I have so much more energy. I feel less brain fog, which is one of the top signs of
Yeah.
a congested lymphatic system. And you get the neuroinflammation. And when your nervous system checks out because of the underlying inflammation, everything becomes much more difficult.
Yeah, it does. And that's what people need to understand, that how their like internal health is literally influencing their decision making. I say this all the time as well for when it comes to like fat loss or body transformation, because I help many people, get in shape and move well and transform their lives from the inside out. One thing I say to them is that, if your internal environment is not healthy, like if we don't start with the fundamentals, with nutrition and lifestyle and light, all the training and all that kind of stuff, the dieting, like it doesn't matter. Let's start with the stuff that matters for you to fix first, a bit your internal state. So you create an environment which is biologically optimal, where your hormones are thriving. And then we can layer things on top, do the hard things. So then you can have better outcomes. But you can't do the hard things if your system is already like messed up, because it's going to overreact. And I know that you talk about this as well, how people have to stack all these different treatments on top of each other, hoping that they stick. And then people are wondering like why they are not working. And it's the same thing with mobility as well. Like when I'm trying to teach people mobility, if they're not adherent to the plan, or if they're not doing things, step by step, and they want to do everything at once, the body just rejects it. And it goes into this contraction state. And so I think it's so important for people to understand that just to, take it step by step, start from the fundamentals, work from the inside out, and also start to change your external environment. And you will start to feel so much better. And then that will allow you to reintroduce more things into your life. More people need to remove more things from their life rather than adding things. Would you agree?
Yeah, correct. Now, many times I tell people in order to change something or get better, it's not necessarily what you add, but what you end up removing. It's called addition by subtraction. That happens a lot in the therapeutic world, especially because people see all these different biohacks that they're termed, where I hate that word. So just, I can do a plunge, I can do the sauna, I can do this, and there's literally, let's say an arbitrary number, there's like 20 great biohacks that you can do, which certainly can be beneficial for people, right? But what we have a tendency to do as humans, and particularly when we don't feel well and we want to feel better and we're tired of feeling sick, we'll do whatever it takes to get better.
Yeah.
People try to do all 20 biohacks at the same time, and it fails. The reason being is very simple. You already have an overwhelmed immune system, and an overwhelmed nervous system, and an overwhelmed all the other systems you want to name off. And they're hypersensitive to any stimulation at all. And they're very easy to overwhelm even more. And the body has this self-protective mechanism on it that if you're doing something to it that you consider a good thing, for instance, okay, as opposed to a bad thing, which is kind of subjective anyway, because it depends on how much you're getting of something. Like the red light that you're in right now, you can get too much light. There is such a thing as that, because the body has what they call a threshold or a capacity or a dosage. And if you cross over that, the body will actually begin to inhibit things and shut things down and not change. And that's the person who says, I'm doing all this stuff and nothing is changing. And then when it doesn't change, they have the reverse answer is, well, then I guess I have to do 30 things now, because 20 is not enough. And I'm like, no, it's the exact opposite. You need to go down and do, like, I'm just picking an arbitrary number, 2. Just do 2, because you can deliver too much energy into the body. This is really important. It's not the energy that you put in, it's the energy that your body can absorb. Those are 2 different things. And you'll see that with everything. Right? You can put all these different nutrients into your mouth through your supplements. Like I have some people taking 50 supplements a day, and people are out there saying they're proud of it. And I'm like, well, they can go into your mouth, but it doesn't mean they're going into cells at all, because they have to make their way into the cell, right? Like you have a cell here you're trying to repair, and you're trying to get the nutrients into the cell. This is where the light bulbs go off, because then I ask you, all right, I want you to tell me, how does everything in your supplement travel to the cell? What's the transport mechanism to the cell? And this is where you have to say fluid. You have to say blood, because that's the only way it's getting there, man. That's it. Okay. So the blood has to deliver it to the cell, but the blood doesn't just immediately go right to the cell. The blood has to cross over the fluid that the cells are living in. All right. Because they're not living in the blood. They're living in the interstitial fluid, the interstitium, the fluid-filled spaces around cells, all of them. And that's that fluid environment. So it has to cross to there. And then this is when I tell people that that fluid-filled environment, it's controlled by one system, brother. One, the lymphatic system. And if the lymphatic system doesn't work well, stuff can't cross the fluid from the blood, even though it's in the blood, to get to the cell. All right. And when you realize that, you're like, wow, then I should probably make sure that that fluid, it works really well, doesn't have waste, is not backed up with stuff. So then that actually can work. And then that's what the lymphatic system does. That helps keep that fluid clean. So what you take in can go into the tissue. Because what happens then is, this is what happens. You get better absorption. So you'll be able to absorb more of whatever you just put into your body. Then your cells can now begin to metabolize, like make new energy, create energy, right? Because we're trying to put energy into the body so your cells can create energy, right? That's the energetic process, the mitochondria, the electron transport chains, that's all energy.
Yeah.
Whenever you create energy in the body, or energy any place else, you always make waste. You always make a waste product. So the cells will create waste when you try to help them heal, recover, and regenerate. And then you have to ask yourself, where does the waste go? Well, the waste goes out into the same fluid that the cells live in. So it poops in its own fluid. That's what it does. I call it cell poop. And then that waste has to get out. So it's not just the waste that lands in your system from outside. It's the waste that your own body makes by making new body parts. Like, because cells are dying. You know how many cells you have? Like trillions of cells die a day, like a lot, right? And then you have to say, well, how are those getting out? Well, the lymphatic system is the primary plumbing system that does that. So when you clog that fluid system up, you backlog everything, even your good stuff, even your good food, even all your nutritional supplements. Those will become waste products too. So your broccoli becomes a waste product just like your Pop-Tart does. So I would much rather you eat the broccoli than the Pop-Tart. But in essence, to your body, it really doesn't care which one. If it's stuck full of waste, it's still going to be waste. And that's why it has to get out. And one of the things that happens is the body's really smart, is then you have to ask yourself, what does the body do if waste can't get out?
Not sure.
Stuff can't get out, then so this is when you have to think like the body thinks. It's trying to heal you and keep you from dying. And it says, oh my goodness, Perry can't get rid of his waste. What in the world are we going to do now? So then what the body does is it will create more inflammation, because it's trying to now I'm going to double down and give you more inflammation to try to kill the stuff that can't get out. So it just builds and builds, and you get caught in physiology. They call it a positive feedback loop. It just reinforces and it keeps building and building and bigger. And positive feedback loops in healthcare will kill you. Like that'll keep you in fight or flight, right? So, or inflammation. So it keeps building inflammation. And what it'll do is, if you have a lot of waste inside of you and it can't get out, the body tries to dilute the waste products. And the solution to the pollution of the waste products is it's just going to swell the container that the waste lives in, which means you get puffy and swollen and you hold water and you get the pitting edema and all this sort of stuff, and you get bigger like this. And then you're like, no matter what I do, I'm always swollen. Well, of course you are, because your body is trying to protect you. And then let's say that keeps going on and on and on. And then the body says, okay, Perry hasn't learned about the lymphatic system yet, so I'm trying to swell the person up. It says, what's the next option I can do? Then it uses body fat. It tries to take the waste products and the toxins and store it in the body fat to remove it from the vital structures that are deep in the body. So you get fat as a self-protective mechanism. And we know now that fat is actually an organ. It's an endocrine organ.
Yes.
And so what happens is that you'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. So here's the rub. What happens when people get fat or they get puffy? What's their normal solution? What do they do next?
Go to the
I'm
gym.
going to change my diet. Yeah, I'm going to change my diet, and I'm going to start eating all good food, which is great.
Yeah.
I'm going to take all these different nutritional supplements, and I'm going to start to exercise, like a lot. All right? So you go to the gym and you exercise. What happens when you exercise?
Metabolic waste.
You actually, you have metabolic energy, and you're breaking down, you're killing cells, especially when you weight train, and you're actually creating more energy and more what? Waste products. So what happens is you end up dumping even more waste into the body because of the exercise, but the waste that was already there can't get out. And then I'm adding more waste into it. So I've got double waste. Not to mention, you threw 50 supplements into my liver that can't process it. Now I've got more supplement waste going in. So I have waste on waste on waste. That's the person who exercises and they feel worse, or they usually end up quitting after 4 to 6 weeks. Or they may lose weight, but then what happens is it comes back and they gain even more weight. That's the person who says, I went on a diet and I did this, and then I gained 50 pounds extra back. Or I'm exercising and it's like, I'm doing everything and I cannot lose weight. Well, the reason being in my world is because you're already stuck full of waste, and you keep adding waste, and the body will just say, okay, I'm not letting anything go. That's it. So it keeps you fat to protect you, right? It's not trying to punish you. It's trying to do the best it can with the limited resources that it has. That's why when people do lymphatic work, particularly the right way, they can lose 20, 30 pounds of swelling, inflammation, body waste, and toxins in no time, like a month.
Wow.
Because you're flushing stuff out that got trapped. And you're not going to get that through a liver cleanse, right? So people try to cleanse the liver, which is great, all right? Or I have people say, don't do lymphatic work until you do a liver cleanse. Wrong. You're backwards. It's the opposite way. So, because if I'm trying to do a liver cleanse, I'm putting stuff in there to try to flush stuff out of the liver, but the liver produces 50% of all the lymph in the body. The liver produces 50% of all the lymph in the body, and your liver is probably sluggish and stagnated, and you likely have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease as well. But let's say you do try to cleanse the liver, then I'm going to ask you, where's the liver waste going that you're trying to cleanse out? What if I'm sending that towards a lymphatic block? Like your liver will dump 50% of the lymph into a block.
Yeah.
And if the block is still there, where's the lymph now going to go? It's going to go back into your liver, or it's going to go down into the tissues, typically where you don't want it. Your belly, your hips, and your ass. It's going to go right there and into your legs, because it's got to go somewhere. So when people have all these liver issues, which you do, how do you know you have a liver issue? That's very easy. You have a liver. And then you combine the big six. So spot number 4 of the big six opens up the lymph block in the abdomen that the liver dumps into.
This one
So
underneath the
now
rib
you
cage.
do the lymph work. Yeah. Right. And it comes up from the abdomen along the spine behind the rib cage and will try to dump its waste into the left side collarbone. Right. So, but let's go back to what we talked about before. What's the position of somebody's abdomen and sternum when they're sitting for most people? What does it look like? Yeah, they're slumped. So they slump and they crunch down and have more tension in the abdomen. So you're shutting off your pump there because you have too much tension in the abdomen, crushing your organs together. And I want you to try, when you're in that position, to take a nice deep breath in through the diaphragm. It's going to be virtually impossible. So you also compromise your diaphragm muscle, which is the primary pump that moves the lymph throughout the whole body, but definitely in your abdomen. And they round in the shoulders and the upper back, right? So they sink in the front. They have more tension in the chest and in the shoulders and in the pecs. And now when you're in that position, try to take a nice deep breath in. You can't because you're too tense up here. And where is the head living when they're sitting like that? It's looking usually at a phone or it's really far forward. And I just choked off all the flow to my brain and from my brain. And now in that position, everything increases pressure. Everything increases pressure. And then that increase in pressure now prevents the fluid flow. And which fluid? You already know the answer.
All of it.
Yes. All of it, right? So that position right there and those movement and breathing shuts everything down. So there's a lot of stuff going on when your lymphatic system is stagnated and sluggish that you can make a huge difference in your life if you just start to open up the flow routes in the right order, which we teach you through the big six. And you pay a lot of special attention to the center abdominal region because that's where most of your lymphatic system lives, is in the abdomen. And the reason it lives in your abdomen because that's where you put so much stuff from the outside world into your body through your mouth. Interesting fact. What I always ask people, what's the largest surface area of your body exposed to the outside world? Most people will say skin. And it's not even close. What it is your gut. Just everything goes inside of you when you eat it and when you swallow it. So if you have those microplastics or endocrine disruptors, you're sending that into your intestines, right? Which is if you lay that thing out, it's huge. I think it's like a tennis court or something like that. And people say, no, it's not that big. I'm like, who cares? It's big. That's all I want you to know. All right.
Yeah.
Just who cares? It's a tennis court. It's not really a tennis court. Right. And so that's the start that leaks on in, and the lymphatics have to be there in order to take those things that are coming into the system to try to kill you or take you out. The lymphatic system job is to try to prevent that from happening. I know I was a mouthful there, but that's how I need for people to look at the body of, just because you try to change the outside habits, it's great, but I need you to already fast forward and see what's going on with the inside body before you start all. Because if you can clean up the inside body first and then you do that, your results will be different.
Yes.
We've probably heard about red light therapy before and all the incredible benefits that it has to offer. But unfortunately, not all panels on the market are created equally. And this is why I only use and trust the ones that I have put in the description below. They have the highest quality panels on the market from build quality, aesthetics, and functionality. So if you want a massive 40% discount on my favorite red light therapy panels, head to the description below and make sure to use the promo code attached to get a massive 40% discount.
Exactly. So basically what you're saying, that there is a fundamental order that people must do. One thing which I love that you say all the time, before you do anything, work your lymphatics. And it's 100% true, because every time when you move your body, you do some form of a therapy. Everything that you just mentioned there, massage, red light therapy, sunlight, grounding, all these things, they move the lymphatic system, whether we are aware of it or not. So before we move it, it's good if it's uncongested and it's flowing as it should. One very important question which I have is, when the lymphatic system grabs all of this waste and this, these toxins and pollutants, where does it actually take it out? Is it through the urine, like through the kidneys? Like, what's the exit flow?
Yeah. So when you have these little lymph nodes, by the way, those little mini toilets, I call them, one of my mentors is a very brilliant scientist, researcher. He's the one who discovered the meningeal lymphatic systems in the brain. And his name is Dr. Jonathan Kipnis, and he talks about the neuroimmune response, that the nervous system and the immune system work together. And when he explained it to me, he said that the lymph nodes are basically mini barcode scanners for your immune system. So they'll, like, if you go to the store and you scan something at the grocery store, that's how it knows if I brought toothpaste or a cantaloupe, right? It's the same thing when something comes into the node that makes its way in there from what? The interstitial fluid, right? Because it's got to go from the interstitial fluid into the lymph node.
Yes.
Then it recognizes it and it says, okay, immune system, let's say I got a toothbrush here. And then the immune system will send out a response to a toothbrush. And then another thing can come in and say, oh no, this is a cantaloupe. So that'll send out what it needs for the cantaloupe. And they're gonna come on, these macrophages are gonna come on in, and those guys are like Pac-Man. They'll surround stuff and eat it and digest it, and it's gone. They'll just take care of it. And you have 600 to 700 lymph nodes in the body, like a lot. And what it'll do is it'll go through a node, and that node will Pac-Man it, and then it'll send it to the next node above it, up, and then the next node takes it, and then that'll start to kill stuff. So every node is going to do a little bit more killing for you and cleaning for you as it goes along, and the majority of the stuff just disappears. It's just gone, right?
Wow.
But the lymphatics, okay, it's just the name of the fluid. It's a fluid called lymphatics. But the lymphatics now will dump what's left over. Like whatever's left over will now go into the veins of the body. Okay. So lymph dumps into veins at the collarbone is where it goes. But see, when that fluid crosses over, it's not called lymph anymore. It goes in towards the veins, and then it's gonna become venous fluid, plasma. It'll become plasma. So what happens is that when it hits, when that transitions right here, it doesn't mean that lymphatic just stops coming in and then I have a brand new total fluid over here because it changed a pipe. It's the same stuff. It's just now called a different fluid because it was named a different fluid. You understand? So lymph is not separate from vein. This is what I need you to understand. Lymph is not separate from vein. It's the same stuff. It just changes names. Then once it goes in through the veins, then the veins are going to have to reoxygenate it, right? Go to the lungs, then come out, and then it's got to go out now through what? Arteries. Okay. So now the stuff that was in the veins now goes into the arteries, and that's now called plasma. And then the arteries will send that stuff into the other routes for stuff that have to get out. So I can breathe out toxins, I can sweat out toxins, but where your lymphatic toxins go is the kidney. You pee it out and towards the kidney. Right? So that's supposed to go out through there. And then once, just to kind of complete the cycle again, when I talk about all these different systems communicate with each other. So it went from the lymph, and then it goes from the lymph now into the veins, and then it's going to go into the arteries, and it's now called plasma. Right? It's plasma. And then that also takes your nutrients and your oxygen and all that stuff, and that brings it to, what's the next stop for the blood flow, for the plasma? Where does it go from there? Into the interstitial fluid. It goes back into the interstitial fluid so it can get to the cell. And then that interstitial fluid now goes back into what? Lymphatics. So it's a complete loop. It's a complete loop. So what that means is that, hey, you have a lymphatic system stagnation, which also means in my world, you have a vein and an artery stagnation. You have now all three. And those fluids, my friend, are the only way anything gets anywhere. That's it, right? So all the light you're doing, all the supplements, all the stuff you're trying to change the cells and the internal environment and get waste out and get nutrients in, what I'm trying to say is, in my approach, that's not going to happen at all if the fluids don't move. If the fluids don't move, I don't care how much red light you shine on your skin, it ain't going to help you much. Now, can red light influence fluid flow? Of course. Can the sun influence fluid flow? Of course it can. But what if it's stagnated and it can't move? Because it's supposed to move. You're supposed to have a well-functioning lymphatic system, artery system, and vein system, but no human on this earth does. Why? Because you're on this earth, modern day earth. That's why when they say, just get back to basics, man. Get away from the crazy, right? Go into sun, start to breathe, hang around really nice other human beings and community, and all those things help what? Decrease stress, which decreases tension, which increases fluid flow. So you feel better. I mean, it's so simple. I always tell people, it's so simple, it's stupid. Like, people just say to themselves, it can't be a formula that's simple. Yes, it can. People overcomplicate this stuff all the time because they can, but the human body is complex. It's not complicated.
Yes.
So you get the fluid flow routes going. All I'm saying is this. It's a simple premise. Get the fluid flow routes moving and then do your 5 billion biohacks on top of it. That's it. And I guarantee you, because this is how physiology works and this is how physics works. Just because you do the 500 biohacks doesn't mean you're moving your fluid. It doesn't mean that at all. You're impacting your fluid and you're certainly moving it. But then I'm going to say, where are you moving it? Are you just shaking up the snow globe so everything stays inside and just ricochets around? Or do you have an exit route for something? That's why in my world, when you come in to see me and I release your lymphatics and I improve blood flow to regions, I drastically change your results that you're getting.
Yes.
Because you're changing the fluid flow dynamics. That's why the order is absolutely critical. Order is everything. So I'm going to expand on this a little bit because now you got me going. So let's say that if people say, let's go down into the abdomen. Okay, people have a lot of inflammation in the abdomen. They have a lot of the endocrine disruptors get trapped down in there, especially when you're going to be going in towards the liver, which will take a hit with all those sorts of stuff. And if you have a hit to the liver, you'll have a hit to your spleen. If you have a hit to your liver, you'll have a hit to your intestines as well, because they're all interconnected through blood flow and lymphatics. So they all backflow with each other. Okay. So when you press in that area and somebody says to me, hey doc, what kind of tissue are you impacting there? Yes is the answer. I say that a lot. It's like fascia, blood flow, ligaments, lymph. I mean, you name it. You're going through it all. Okay. But when you do something to your abdomen, what I need you to understand is, let's say I massage the abdomen. I'm thinking in the back of my mind, when I push on that area, what happens to the fluids in the body when I push on that area? The fluid's got to go somewhere. So the fluid for the waist, it's going to go up or try to go up to the collarbone. That's where it's trying to go. Right? But then you have to ask yourself, what if the collarbone or the space behind your sternum and along your spine, which is trying to take that stuff up from the abdomen, is blocked or stagnated? So the collarbone doesn't work that great. Well, everything that you're rubbing on the belly, you're sending up to a block, which means it's going to send it right back down to where it started. So you're just creating more black backflow, and you shook up the snow globe, and you're like, man, I really feel like crap. To which I'm going to say, well, that's why you have to work and open your collarbone first. Then when you open your collarbone, whatever you do down in the number 4 works much better. And this is when people are saying, well, what difference does it make where I rub as long as I'm rubbing? No, that makes all the difference. That's why your massage can help, but may not move those fluids so much, because people just start rubbing wherever they want to start rubbing. Right? But when you open up those pipes first and then you rub, you're gonna say, oh, what? That's crazy. The difference that it has. So no, it's not crazy. It's actually the miracle of your body. You just gave it the ability to do what it's been trying to do, but it's not been able to do that. So the endocrine disruptors and, the non-native EMFs, they're going to affect the cells of your body for sure. Okay. And a lot of different ways, which we'll get into, or we can get into in a moment if we're okay on time.
Absolutely.
I'm just looking at, well, what happens after that? Where's the stuff got to go once it gets impacted? Then I'm gonna make you think even more. If you're a person that has a lot of stagnation and a lot of inflammation already inside of your body, you're the person who's going to react more to a non-native EMF.
Yes.
Or to an endocrine disruptor, or to whatever happens, because it's the state of the organism before something happens to it that determines how well it recovers from what just happened to it.
Resilience.
Do you follow that, what I'm saying? So that's like if I have somebody going in for a surgery, how well you recover from that surgery depends on what was the state of your body systems before you went on the table. That will make a difference on what your results are, even if another person got the exact same procedure. It's not the procedure. It's who is getting the procedure.
Exactly.
Makes a difference from that. And that's kind of like the terrain theory. You've heard of the terrain theory versus the germ theory? So the terrain theory, basically, which is the one that I follow, you have germs, but germs are going to really love you if your terrain in your body is crappy. Like if you have a congested interstitial fluid, you have a terrain that makes it much easier for stuff that's trying to kill you, as opposed to if you have a clean terrain. And that's the proverbial question of, you put 10 people in a room, somebody comes in with a cold and sneezes, and 2 people get a cold and 8 people don't. What's the difference? Same virus, different host, different ability to protect you from what it got exposed to. It's impossible to live on this earth and avoid non-native EMFs and endocrine disruptors, right? You got to go live in a cave somewhere. And even then, you're probably going to get something. So it's impossible. But what you can do is limit your exposure, for sure. And then now what you're going to learn from our conversation is you better be doing your lymphatic system in conjunction with that. But as we know, when you do your lymphatic system, you're not just working your lymphatic system. You're working your vascular system. You're working your nerves. You're working your fascia. All of it together.
If I want to regulate my nervous system, reduce anxiety and depression, and get an instant feeling of calm, my go-to is grounding. And this is why I make sure to get my bare feet on the ground every single day as much as I can. You see, the body needs energy in order to function properly, and grounding is a massive source of energy for our body. Now, if I'm not grounding barefoot in the sea or on grass, I make sure to wear my earth runners, which are my favorite barefoot and grounding sandals. As you can see, they come with a white toe box to allow your feet to work as they should, and underneath there is a copper plug and the silver stitching through the lace to make sure that you are grounded at all times. So if you're serious about your health and nervous system, you definitely need to check them out. You'll find the link in the description below, and make sure to use the promo code attached to get a nice discount on my favorite barefoot grounding sandals.
It's truly incredible. Thank you so much for all of that. That was absolutely amazing. And I think it really blew my mind there when you explained about the plasma and the lymphatics, how it dumps in there and how it's all intertwined. And it makes you realize that actually the blood, the quality of the blood or the cleanliness of the blood relies on the lymphatic system. And I think that's so important for people to understand that,
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to have a nice and clean blood like people talk about, you got to make sure that, yes, all these binders and all these things that they're great, but you also got to make sure that your lymphatic system, which is your primary detoxification system of the body, is actually working as it should. So all of those things that you do take, all the biohacks that you do, like you just mentioned, are working properly. Do you know Brian Johnson, this guy who spends over 2 million a year on biohacks? So yeah. I'm wondering if he actually knows about the lymphatic system and takes care of his lymphatic system, because if he's not, he's wasting $2 million a year.
Yeah, and hats off, man. But the average human being on this earth sometimes these days doesn't even have $200 to their name. Yes. They can't do stuff. So you also have to live in this thing called reality. And yes. I'm so glad that you mentioned the blood work, because this is something I see a lot. And maybe you can even speak from people that you've worked with. I've had people that are really not well, and they can't get out of bed, and they're tired and fatigued, and they go in and they get blood work, and the blood work comes back normal. You're within, your doctor says you're within normal limits, and then your response is, well, how come I'm suffering so much? What's going on? Because if they don't find it in the blood, they don't know what to do, first of all. But the blood's only one medium, and plus, I could take your blood now and then 10 minutes later take it again. I'll get a different blood result, because your blood has to adapt to the surrounding environment. Like, yes, I could take your blood and then put you through a really stressful emotional event, or have you spend 5 minutes on X, and then I'll take your blood again, and you're going to be a hot inflammatory mess. But the reason that people can suffer so much that they can't find it is because they have what's called a stealth infection or stealth pathogens. They're not in the blood. They're in the interstitial fluid, or the interstitium. This is the space between the blood and the lymph. It's trapped in there. And many people have so much sludge, toxins, and tightness, or what it's called interstitial inflammatory stasis. I'm going to say that again. Interstitial, which is the fluid-filled spaces between the cells, and what they call the interstitium, which is the support network that holds the cells together. Inflammatory means it's just stuck full of inflammation and inflammatory cytokines, which I'll review in a second. Stasis. Stasis just means it's not moving. Okay. So all of those things are there, and they're trapped inside of that fluid, and that's why you can't see them on the blood work. But they're wreaking the havoc there because your immune system is trying to take care of it through the cytokines. And what happens is, when you get stasis and the lymphatic system can't drain stuff, you have the waste and the pathogens, the immune system will send out the pro-inflammatory cytokines. The biggest ones are interleukin 6. Interleukin 6 is the top dog for chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. That's like probably the number one pro-inflammatory cytokine that takes people out, and it'll massacre your brain. It also puts out TNF alpha and interleukin 1B, and they're all just they're not trying to make your life miserable. They're trying to kill stuff that can't get out. So it's not that you're broken, it's you're stuck full of stuff. So that there, and then guess what endocrine disruptors do? Endocrine disruptors also increase all of those. TNF alpha, interleukin 6. So you got pro-inflammatory cytokines increase because you're already stuck, and then you put those things in, and then I'm doubling down in there, and stuff can't get out. And those pro-inflammatory cytokines and all that stuff like that right now, then it'll cause an increase to be released in what's called TGF beta 1. And TGF beta 1, when that gets released, a side note, TGF beta 1 also gets released when you're in sympathetic dominance, hypervigilance. That causes fibrosis. That causes scarring or fascial tension in and around the interstitium and the extracellular matrix. So now your body is laying down stuff that makes it even more tense and tight. So what happens is you just caught in this cycle. It just goes da 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 da. You're like, I can't get out of the cycle. Da 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 da. And I'm like, well, here's an easy first step. Open up your lymphatics. get them going. And that's why when you do lymphatic work the first time, people usually feel like a major detox reaction called a Herxheimer reaction, and they feel sick and they feel worse. Why? Because now there's stuff that's been trapped in that interstitial fluid for years that makes its way into a lymph node for the first time. And then what did I say the job of a lymph node is?
Scan.
To scan it as a barcode for your immune system. So now your immune system goes crazy because its job is now to kill the stuff that you unstuck. So that's also why you have to ease into lymphatic work. And it also now brings us back to what we said before, is that it doesn't take a lot of stuff to make a change in the body, because you can do too much lymphatic work. Just like you could do too much water, too much lymph, too much light, whatever. So the dosage is key. That's another reason why I created the Big Six, because the Big Six is a good, easy entryway into just opening up those primary ones without having to slam the whole body with a full lymph release on the whole thing. Right? Even though you'll get a full lymph release when you open up the 6, but I'm going in easy. I'm going in lighter. So there's always a electrochemical, neurochemical reason for why this stuff is happening. I just want you to I could literally spend 3 hours here talking about all the biochemistry associated with what inflammatory markers and all these things are going on in the cell and around the body. And it's like speaking Martian. Who gives a crap? I don't care. All I want you to understand is your job is to just go in and be a plumber. Like, I'm going to open up your pipes, and then now your septic system will work. That's it. Like, just open them up and then let everything start to come out, and you'll start to feel better.
100%. Yeah, you blew my mind there when you mentioned about the fibrosis. I thought that was like absolutely fascinating. So then would that be because like the body is getting like it's just another response or survival mechanism really to just try and trap those toxins there and that stuff that can't move? It just tries to lock it down so it doesn't float in other areas of the body. Is that why it creates that fibrosis?
Yeah, that could be a part of it too. And plus just TGF-beta-1 biochemically causes fibrosis. I mean, that's just what happens.
Oh, I see. So, okay.
I think that's more of a reaction to what's being released, and that's because of the inflammation. It causes that to happen, and then that causes the stagnation. And that's another reason why my lymphatic work is very different than other people's work, is that if you've ever seen lymphatic work demonstrated, particularly in the past and even today, people go super light, like really, really gentle light, which is okay. There's no problem with that. That does have a place, and it is necessary to do in certain cases or certain locations, especially if somebody already has damaged lymphatic valves. You may have to go in a little bit easier. Plus, going in easier is less threatening to a person's nervous system, so they'll relax a little bit more and ease into the treatment. But because you have that stagnation, and it's usually been there for a long period of time, and you have the fibrosis, it's going to take more pressure to open those areas up and begin to try to make a change in the fibrosis. That's why when people go get like fascial work, they have sometimes a long period of slow, sustained pressure into a fascial region to let it start to quote unquote melt away, right? Like my friend Sue Hitzman has the melt method, which is a great method because it's based on that. You just get into things and you slowly melt into the tissue, and then the body will begin to relax and it'll let that stuff go. It's also the same premise of the block therapy, which is many people know about block therapy, where you just put the specially designed blocks. My friend Deanna has that company, and you ease into the tissue, and then you open up that flow and let that stuff come out. Now I just want you to be thinking in your mind, well, where's the flow going? Where's the flow going? So let's say you have a lot of swelling or inflammation and irritation in your calves. Could be one, could be both. So where's the swelling and the inflammation when you're going to get into that tissue? Where is it trying to go? That's the first question I want you to always ask yourself. Where is the swelling and inflammation from the calf attempting to go?
Upwards.
It's going to go up. Its ultimate goal is the collarbone. That's its destination, is the collarbone. But in order to get to the collarbone, it has to go past the lymph nodes behind the knee. It has to go past the lymph nodes that are located in the groin. It has to go past the lymph nodes that are deep in the belly. Then it's got to go along the pipe up your spine and then go to the left side collarbone. So this ties back to the order. So what if I start rubbing the calf, but I'm blocked in the abdomen, in the groin, and at the knee?
Yeah.
Well, then stuff is just going to come right back down to the calf. So that's why you do the opposite way. You do the big six first, because you would have already opened up the collarbone. You'll open up the abdomen. You'll open up the groin. You'll open up the knee. Then you rub the calf. Vastly different. Okay? So that's the exit route of inflammation. But now let's switch it around. Anytime you're trying to treat something that hurts, like let's say that calf, you're trying to increase blood flow to it. Right? You want blood to tissue to help it heal, because that's the only way it's getting oxygen. It's the only way it's getting nutrients, is through the blood. So you do whatever newfangled treatment you want on your calf. You name it. Okay? Then I'm going to ask you, how's the blood getting to your calf? Then you say, okay, well, I have to start. Yeah. And where does that start? The heart. Now, the heart's got to send it down to the calf. And then I'm going to ask you, it's got to get past your belly. It's got to get past your groin. It's got to get past the back of your knee to get to the calf. What if you have a problem with the back of the knee, the crease of the groin, and the abdomen? Then stuff can't get down either. And that's why, holy cow, when you do big six, you open up the pipes both ways, to and from. Not to mention, then I'm going to say, if you have nerves in your calf, where do the nerves in your calf come from? Which your you brain. Then say your spine. Right. Your brain and your spinal cord, right? So then that's the abdomen. That's the groin. That's the back of the knee. And then that's down. And it is the brain. Okay? Because we know that the signals have to come from your foot up your spine to your brain. Then your brain has to determine what this information means. Is it meaningless, or do I have to pay attention to it? Do I have to send pain to Perry because he's about ready to do something stupid here? So the brain has to make that decision, and then it'll determine if it wants to send a pain signal down, because pain is the output signal from the brain. But now hang on. What happens if your brain has inflammation and the brain lymph doesn't drain, or you have poor blood flow to the brain and away from the brain? Do you think that will influence the brain's decision on what to do with about pain? Yes or yes? It will.
Absolutely.
So what'll happen is that's the person who's much more sensitive to things. You become hypersensitive and everything hurts, because an inflamed brain has a very difficult time inhibiting pain. So everything hurts. But hang on for it. When you do the big six and you open up the collarbone, and I open up number 2 on the side of the neck behind the angle of the jaw, you just opened up the primary routes of everything to the brain and from the brain, and you did the rest of the body. So what happens is the whole circulation system now works better. Then that's the person in my world who says, since I started doing your lymphatic work, doc, I have less brain fog, I have less fatigue, I'm a little bit more clear-headed, and stuff doesn't hurt as much. And I'm able to relax more with all of my breathing exercises and my meditation exercises. For what reason? You just decreased inflammation in the body because you cleared your pipes and you cleared the waste, and now all of your other treatments that you have been doing will work better. Or maybe the ones that you have been doing will now work if they didn't work before because you cleaned yourself out.
This is such an important
Systems.
discussion.
You have to think systems, right? And not to mention that we know from the research that people with gut problems, gut issues, have brain issues. You have neuroinflammation. Parkinson's is always tied to the gut, right? I'm going to say, I don't care what diagnosis you give me from my brain, it's still inflammation. So the brain and the gut are tied together. So that's why when you have issues up in the brain, you still do the big six, but you also focus on where the largest amount of lymphatics are trapped. Probably the largest amount of your microplastics and endocrine disruptors and hormones get trapped down in the abdominal region, in your liver, in your gut, and even in your spleen. Spleen's a major player with people who have all these sorts of issues. So when you clear those things out, all the other stuff, even the stuff that you're doing up for your brain, works better.
Exactly. Yeah, this has been such an incredible conversation, Dr. Perry, of empowerment. I feel like so many people now can really understand that it's not about just fearing things, but making the body more resilient and badass and strong, like you talk about all the time. It's not about hiding away in fear, but just limiting that load on the body, limiting the pressure, giving it the room to become more resilient, to do what it's supposed to do, what it naturally knows what to do innately. Because the body innately, when we're born, let's say you are born healthy, if your mother was healthy and you're born healthy, then everybody is born in the same place, let's say. And as we live our life, that's where we, start to overload our body with the environment and the toxins and the food that we eat and the thoughts and just modern living in general. And so it's up to us to really take responsibility of our lives, of our external environment, what we are putting inside our body, what we're feeding our body, not just in terms of food, but our mind and just everything in our eyes, but also to take care of our internal environment, exactly what you're just saying, because our modern life, because of the chronic sitting, chronic stagnation in general of moving the body, not breathing correctly, and all of these pollutants and toxins and bad food choices is overwhelming the lymphatic system. And inevitably, that is going to lead to a whole host of problems which manifests differently in different people depending on their weakest link, right? For some person, it might be their knees. For another person, it might be their shoulders. Another person, it might be brain fog. Another person, it might be gut issues or skin issues. It can present itself in so many different ways. And this is why it's so hard for people to pinpoint a specific thing. But as you just mentioned throughout this whole discussion, is that all systems are intertwined and interconnected and communicating with each other. So if you influence one, it's going to affect everything else as well. Therefore, your pain tolerance, your performance, your ability to recover, and all that good stuff. Dr. Perry, I absolutely love this conversation, and I'm sure that the audience absolutely got so much value from this. And if anybody wants to find Dr. Perry's Big Six, he has it on his YouTube channel and also on his Instagram, pinned at the top of his profile as well, that we talked about, because there will be people, really interested to, to figure out how do I do this correctly. And so definitely go and check that out. And you also do you all have ready-made courses on your website as well, right? So where can people find you, connect with you, and work with you if they wish to do so?
Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate that. Yeah, my website, stopchasingpain.com, is definitely the easiest way to find all the different resources that we have. I'm on most every social media platform, whatever one you feel most comfortable with doing. I do have a ton of content on YouTube that you should surf in for sure. Hundreds and hundreds of videos at this standpoint, and you'll see workshops and membership options, and there's many different ways that you can choose to learn with us. And it doesn't matter what level you are. You can be somebody who's in the healthcare field, or you can just be a person who's not in the field that's struggling, or you have a loved one in your life that's struggling and you don't want to suffer anymore. You can dive in and learn from us pretty much at any level. And just to kind of wrap it up on where to start, very simple. Just like you said, go to those, do the Big Six, every day if you can for 30 days. That's the assignment. You may have to skip a day in between if you have a detox reaction, and just make sure that you keep yourself hydrated well, because hydration is a big thing in order for fluids to move in the body, because most of the fluids in your body, crazy thing, are mostly water. So yeah, you want to have a good fluid system in there with hydration, so the fluids don't stagnate and be like sludge.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, great advice, Dr. Perry. Absolutely. I was actually going to ask you, like, should people actually work their lymphatics every day? But that's good to know. Very important, because, you know, if you have a lymph, it's important to take care of it. And I love your analogy of the aquarium. You know, how if you take care of your aquarium, you keep it clean, then your system's working properly. Everything is thriving inside the aquarium. But when the aquarium is getting all green and dirty, that's when you have that backup and that stagnation, and that's when basically inflammation, disease, and everything begins to manifest. So this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.
If you guys enjoy the topics and guests I bring on the show, I would really appreciate it if you left me a 5-star review on Spotify, and also subscribe to Fitness Wisdom Podcast on YouTube as well, as this helps to spread the knowledge and wisdom with the world. Until next time, this is the Fitness Wisdom Podcast.